Hundreds of millions of years ago, the first creatures left the safety of the sea and crawled onto land. To us, it might seem like a step toward freedom, but for them it was a step into danger. The ocean, though filled with predators, was still familiar. On land, nothing was familiar. The air was harsh, the ground unstable, and death waited in forms they had never seen before. Fossils tell us that these pioneers were small, soft-skinned animals with weak lungs and clumsy legs. They struggled to breathe, struggled to move, and every moment on land was a fight against suffocation. Some collapsed on the shores, unable to adapt. Others made it a little further, but found themselves hunted by creatures already waiting. For the first time, life was stepping into a world where survival was far from guaranteed. The earth itself was hostile. Volcanic eruptions filled the sky with ash, storms tore through the land, and poisonous gases seeped from cracks in the soil. The seas were filled with predators, but on land, survival felt like walking into a death trap. Archaeologists uncovered tracks frozen in stone, marks of creatures dragging themselves from water to land, their fate unknown. Did they find safety, or did they meet death just steps away from the shore? The suspense is clear. The first step onto land was not a victory. It was a gamble, and for many it was their last. The land that greeted those early creatures was not a place of safety, it was a battlefield of elements. The air, heavy with strange gases, burned in their lungs. Each breath felt like a risk, a chance that the invisible world around them could poison instead of nourish. The ground beneath their bodies was hot and cracked, shaped by volcanoes that erupted without warning. Rivers of lava cut through forests of strange plants, and ash rained down from skies that turned black in an instant. Lightning storms ripped across the land, setting dry brush ablaze. Fires spread fast in the thick oxygen-rich air, leaving nothing but scorched earth behind. Those who crawled from the water found themselves trapped between smoke above and flames below. Fossilized layers of ancient charcoal revealed just how often the land burned, a deadly cycle of growth and destruction. Even the soil itself held danger. Pools of toxic water bubbled with strange chemicals, while gases seeped from the earth, suffocating anything that wandered too close. The ocean had predators with teeth and claws, but the land itself was alive with dangers that could not be fought. For the pioneers, survival was not just about escaping predators. It was about learning to breathe without choking, to walk without burning, and to live in a world where the air, the ground, and even the storms seemed determined to kill them. The question was simple but terrifying. Why risk leaving the water at all? Long before humans walked the earth, the land was already ruled by monsters. Fossils reveal creatures that would send chills even today. Scorpions the size of dogs, centipedes longer than a man, and dragonflies with wings as wide as hawks. These predators thrived in the high-oxygen world, their bodies built for size and power. For the first fragile animals crawling out of the sea, the land was no empty stage. It was already occupied by giants waiting in the shadows. Imagine a small, clumsy amphibian dragging itself onto the muddy shore, gasping for air, only to be met by the glittering eyes of a massive scorpion hiding in the rocks. A single strike from its stinger could end the journey before it even began. In the undergrowth, giant centipedes slithered like living chains, armored and fast, hunting anything that moved. The skies above were no safer. Enormous dragonflies swooped down with needle-like jaws, their wings buzzing like thunder. The ocean had been dangerous, but here the rules were worse. On land, these new pioneers had no defense. Their bodies were soft, their legs slow, their lungs weak. Every movement across the dirt was a gamble between survival and being devoured. The suspense rises as the question sharpens. How could fragile newcomers from the sea survive against monsters built perfectly for killing? The evidence in fossils shows the answer. Most did not. Only a few endured, and their struggle shaped the future of all life on land. The first animals to leave the water were not strong heroes. They were fragile survivors. Their skin was thin and soft, drying out quickly under the burning sun. Without scales or fur for protection, even the air itself threatened to kill them. Their lungs were weak, barely able to pull in enough oxygen, and many gasped and collapsed after only a few steps. Their legs were clumsy, heavy, and not yet built for walking on hard ground. Every move across the soil was slow, awkward, and dangerous. Fossils show how many of these pioneers never lasted long. Some species appear in the record for only a short time before vanishing forever, wiped out by predators or the harsh land. Others left behind partial tracks, as if they crawled forward but never returned. These failures are reminders that life on land was never guaranteed. It was a brutal test, and most could not pass it. Yet a few managed to endure. They found shallow pools where they could rest, hiding from predators and keeping their skin wet. They adapted slowly, strengthening their lungs and limbs with each generation. Still, they were always on the edge of death. Hunted by monsters, threatened by storms, and weakened by their own fragile bodies, the suspense lingers with a haunting thought. Survival seemed almost impossible, yet somehow a handful of these pioneers lived on. The question is why? What gave them the chance to succeed where so many others failed? The struggle for survival on land was endless, a battle fought every hour between life and death. Fossil tracks preserved in ancient mud tell vivid stories. Chased footprints of small creatures fleeing for their lives, followed closely by the deeper marks of predators hunting them down. Some skeletons are found locked together, predator and prey dying in the same moment. Proof of desperate fights in a world that showed no mercy. Floods swept through lowlands, drowning entire groups that had only just escaped the sea. Fires tore across forests, leaving charred remains behind. Storms broke with such force that fragile bodies were smashed beneath falling trees and rocks. On land, death came not only from claws and teeth, but also from the violent hand of nature itself. Those who survived did so through adaptation. Some grew tougher skin to hold moisture, others strengthened their lungs to take in more air, while a few developed stronger legs to move faster across the unstable ground. But adaptation was slow, and every new change came at the cost of many lives lost. The suspense builds as the question deepens. Was survival even possible in a place where everything seemed to kill? The ocean was dangerous, but land was chaos, filled with fire, storms, and monsters. And yet, out of this endless battle, a fragile line of survivors held on, setting the stage for the next chapter in Earth's history. The land soon became a graveyard. Great waves of extinction swept across it, wiping out species that had once dared to crawl from the water. Sudden shifts in climate brought long droughts, turning wetlands into cracked deserts. Then just as quickly, floods returned, drowning everything that had adapted to dry ground. Volcanic eruptions covered whole regions in ash, smothering forests and poisoning the air. For many early land dwellers, survival was a fight they could not win. Fossil records show layers of death, skeletons buried together, entire species vanishing in the blink of geological time. Tracks that once marked hope ended abruptly, as if creatures had simply disappeared mid-journey. The predators that once ruled grew fewer, and even the giants of the insect world began to collapse. The land itself seemed cursed, a place that offered no future, only constant loss. The suspense grows with the question, was life ever meant to survive on land? Time after time, the earth struck back, crushing every attempt to build a foothold. And yet, in the silence after each disaster, small survivors endured. Hidden in muddy pools, tucked inside caves, or clinging to scraps of forest, they refused to vanish. Though the land had become a graveyard, it was also a test. Those who survived its endless punishments would carry the strength to change the course of history forever. The age of failure was not the end. It was the beginning of something greater. Against all odds, a turning point finally came. From the small survivors who endured fire, floods, and predators, new life began to rise. Their lungs grew stronger, their skin tougher, their legs sturdier. What had once been fragile crawlers became confident walkers, able to breathe deeply and move farther across the land. These were the ancestors of reptiles, mammals, and eventually humans. The land that had once been a death trap was slowly becoming the stage for the future. Fossil trails reveal this transformation. The scattered, broken tracks of weak pioneers gave way to steady, powerful footprints marching across ancient mudflats. The predators that once ruled grew weaker as the world changed, while the survivors adapted, learned, and multiplied. The balance was shifting. Land was no longer just a place of death, but a place of new beginnings. Yet the suspense remains, because the cost of this victory was enormous. Entire lineages were lost, and countless species vanished forever, their stories buried in stone. Only a handful carried on, reshaping the earth step by painful step. The forgotten truth is clear. The age when land was more dangerous than water was also the age that forged the resilience of life. Without those who endured the terror, there would be no forests, no animals, no humans.